Well, good morning, Ian R. Crane. You're probably without the hat, but it is a stunning morning, and I thought I'd get some vitamin D to these solar panels here. So here I am in the grounds, these stunning grounds of the Horwood House Hotel, not too far from Milton Keynes, although in terms of the environment, it might be a million miles from the rabbit hutches and plastic city of Milton Keynes. Anyway, I'm here because today we'll be setting up the venue for the AV9 conference, which will start with the gala dinner this evening. Some 300 people coming from as far as Australia. In fact, the lady you see walking in the background has literally landed this morning, having flown in from Sydney, and just taking a stroll before catching up on some much needed sleep before joining the event tonight. We have people coming in from Austria, from Belgium, from the USA, from the Netherlands, from France, from Italy, and of course from all around the UK. So a truly international event of independent thinkers, and these are people who are shakers and movers in activist circles and agents of change, if you like, who are trying to bring about some of the changes that we know we all need to see. Well, the title of this morning's live stream is Fracking, 5G and Euthanasia Needs Mature Debate. And the reason that I've thrown euthanasia in is because this is a debate that is now going very much in Guernsey. And this looks like a backdoor attempt to introduce the concept of euthanasia into the UK. And one of the phrases that I have now heard on 3 separate occasions discussing 3 separate subjects, fracking, 5G and euthanasia, is the apparent dismissive observation that, well, of course, this subject needs mature debate. And this is an attempt to shut down discussion by suggesting that anyone who has the audacity to challenge this evolving establishment agenda lacks the maturity to actually participate in the debate. And this is a very interesting move. It's the use of language. It's straight out of, the common purpose playbook. It's straight out of Tavistock think tanks. And yet it is starting, obviously, to be all pervasive. And it really isn't any coincidence that this phrase has been used on 3 separate occasions by 3 completely different people, totally unrelated people, on 3 completely different subjects. And I know that the use of newspeak, which was so eloquently explained by Brian Gerrish in his opening presentation at AV8 a year ago, here at Horwood House, this is now being used to try to effectively program the wider population and nudge them into accepting the establishment agenda. However pernicious it is to the human race. So at AV9, we will be discussing many subjects and formally, and of course the whole purpose of the event is to bring together people, bring them under the same roof for 3 days, and just try to stimulate organic discussion, organic debate, and who knows what will actually manifest from this event. And we'll be covering subjects such as 5G, such as fracking, such as the programming used by the entertainment industry, particularly Hollywood. And we'll be looking at suppressed cancer treatments. So, this will be a very wide-reaching conference. And there are still a few places available, so do check out online at .co.uk. Now, this euthanasia discussion in Guernsey is one that absolutely needs to be followed closely. It's not getting reported in the wider mainstream media, and I'm very grateful to Matt Waterman, a Guernsey resident, for keeping us posted on what occurs in the Principality on the state of Guernsey, because it is effectively outside of UK Parliament, but at the same time, of course, takes lead from UK Parliament. And in this case, one of the prime movers is Lord Falconer, who is, or was rather, Tony Blair's flatmate back in the days when he was trying to scratch a living as a barrister. Now, Falconer is a very interesting character, and he's the individual who shocked a lot of people in when they first met Tony Blair, because when he'd had a scotch or three, he would treat Tony Blair with absolute disdain. But when you actually understand that it was Falconer who got Tony Anton Charles Blair off lightly from a cottaging charge back in the early 80s, then you realise the hold that Lord Falconer has over Tony Blair, and of course probably over many other players in the establishment. And Falconer is very much at the centre of the euthanasia debate that is now raging in Guernsey. So, watch this space, because, what we've also seen in the UK over the last few weeks, of course, is a situation in Liverpool where, for those who have followed very closely, should now perhaps understand that as a parent, you are actually regarded by the state as little more than a babysitter. And whilst you are raising your children in a way approved by the state, then they allow you to continue in your role as babysitter. But the moment that the state has an agenda that it wishes to pursue, then you very quickly realise that actually you don't have very many rights at all as a parent. And I've tweeted out this morning a link to the translation of an article that appeared in the Italian media, which has dug a little bit deeper than any British journalist has to date in terms of what really occurred in Liverpool over the last, year or so plus, with the Alfie situation. And this is something that isn't going to go away, and people certainly do need to do their own research. Okay, so let's go back to fracking and 5G. Well, all around the country, obviously we've got council meetings in Surrey, my original home county. Mole Valley District Council has decided to formally reject a couple, as stakeholders, a couple of the applications that Europa are submitting to establish 2 new well sites within their boundaries. And they will be advising Surrey County Council that as stakeholders they wish to oppose these applications. And this is where, of course, somebody referred, well, Ian, that's not a particularly mature way of looking at things. But such is the pressure of the Tory central office in the southeast of England. It's going to be very interesting to see just how far the Tory establishment is prepared to push against their loyal electorate, who clearly, having done their own research and very much brought to the fore by the unfolding dramas in Leith Hill, then watch this space. Meanwhile, of course, the south of England doesn't give a damn about the north of England. And here we've got public inquiries going on in Rotherham for Hart Hill. This is INEOS, and of course one that's concluded in Lancashire and Rossiter. And here, the communities very, very much expressing their opposition, and it's going to be very interesting to see whether Mr. Brokenshaw, as the new communities minister, is going to do the right thing and support the communities, or do a Saeed Javid and simply ride roughshod over them. I don't think Mr. Brokenshaw is of the same mould. As I expressed the other day, Saeed Javid was put into politics by the banksters to push the banking agenda, the globalist banking agenda. And don't think for 1 minute that British Parliament isn't influenced greatly by the City of London. And of course, very, very few people are aware that the City of London has its own unelected representative in Parliament who has the freedom to walk the floor in the House of Commons and whisper in the ears of the sitting members, and this is the individual known as the Remembrancer. It's an ancient office, and like I say, very, very few people have heard about it, but this is the power and influence of the financial institutions in Parliament, and I think more people are beginning to realise that the City of London is actually a city-state that effectively operates outside of parliamentary law. So 5G, something that is fortunately increasingly finding its way into people's vocabulary, and I'm pleased to say that Mark Steele from Gateshead, who's been very much on point in raising awareness of this issue and the threat to all life, not just humanity here, but all life, over this intended rollout of the next generation of the telecoms technology. Although it has nothing to do really with telecoms per se. In fact, 4G works extremely well, and that's not without its problems. But 5G is a totally different ball game. It's an invasive technology that is intended to literally monitor and ultimately control through artificial intelligence pretty much everything that occurs in day-to-day lives. So unlike fracking, where pretty much we had an open timescale, it's just a question of keep kicking the can down the road until the government and the industry realized that they were never going to get a free ride. But 5G is already being pushed out, and the Isle of Wight, of all places, has actually put its hand up and said, look, please give us all the money and we'll be a test bed for 5G technology. So now is the time for prominent residents on the Isle of Wight to actually come out from behind their computer and actually get involved and take the lead in opposing the 5G testbed rollout on the Isle of Wight. Meanwhile, of course, Mark Steele in the other end of the country, almost in Gateshead, is campaigning to raise the awareness of not only the threat of 5G, but the double whammy of the LED street lighting, which of course is being fitted also with the 5G transmitters. So, what can we do? Well, we start by obviously trying to encourage people to do their own research, because it's only when people realize for themselves the magnitude of the threat that they actually will start to really get concerned and then to get involved. And sadly, what we are likely to find is that the vast majority of people who take lead roles are the wrong side of retirement age. But these are people that have time and in many cases at least have a degree of financial independence. But it's very sad that the establishment has achieved such incredible success over the past 50 years in terms of completely neutering the young generation, the youth of our species, basically, and neutering them through debt slavery. And of course, this is done now with college fees, where kids at college have to keep their nose to the grindstone so that they get a good degree, so that they can pay back the outrageous sums of money that have been lent to them to get this degree, and then they end up working in McDonald's or Pizza Hut because they can't find appropriate employment that's based upon the knowledge that they supposedly gained while studying. So somehow we have to work towards re-energizing the people in this country to take a very real interest in the agenda, the technocratic agenda that is being rolled out with the willing connivance of our supposed elected representatives. Now, I haven't seen yet any results from the local elections that took place yesterday, but hopefully what we're going to see is that the Tories took a massive spanking. And of course the Tories were hoping that people just wouldn't vote, and that basically their traditional voters would trot out and re-elect the stuffed monkeys that they'd put up as candidates. So let's see what has transpired with that. But as I've said before, the only reason that I have any motivation really to push to see Jeremy Corbyn in number 10 is because it is essential that people actually start to realise that it doesn't matter who is in number 10, it's just two wings of the same bird. And maybe once people see that Jeremy Corbyn, who I absolutely believe will go into number 10 with the best of intentions, just as Gordon Brown did a decade or so ago, but it's only when they actually get into number 10 that they realise that they are little more than a puppet of the establishment, and that actually the magnitude and degree of autonomy and independence that they have is negligible, if any at all. And that may be the point at which people realise that the whole political paradigm has to change, because otherwise we're just going to keep going down a path where the establishment certainly does not have the best interests of humanity at heart. So that's it for me today. I'm going to spend the day, obviously, getting everything set up for the opening of the Alternative View conference tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. But I will be back on Monday morning, and I will be doing a live stream from inside the auditorium of the Alternative View. That will be the final session of the event. But if you are able to join us, then do check out the availability of tickets on alternativeview.co.uk. And if you're coming to Alternative View, have a safe trip, and I look forward to seeing you at the dinner this evening. You take care now.